All right. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, Joel. Thanks for coming along and I guess agreeing to have a chat with me.
That's right, James.
As I said before, I tried to do one of these a couple of weeks ago and it didn't want to work for me, and it doesn't look like it's working too well now either. So, whilst I've got this, I seem to do a fair bit of videos and stuff. Technology doesn't seem to work for me.
No, I have the same problems. I've run lots of webinars and anyway.
So Joel, I guess I put up a post on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago asking for people that might be interested in just having a chat, particularly business owners, which obviously you are. Just who's Joel? Where are you at? Well, what's going on? What are you working on?
No dramas. Yeah, look, I suppose where I'm at the moment is I've just recently sold a training business I had for 9 years. I sold it about 6 or 8 weeks ago. So at the moment, I'm kind of just trying to explore different options, kind of taking the time actually to really kind of think about what I want to do next. I'm only in my early 40s, so I've still got a lot of working life ahead of me. And really it's just kind of, I'm using the time to talk to different people that I haven't had a chance to catch up with for a while, just get a feel for what's going on in the financial services industry as a whole. And just kind of looking at where my interests lie and what I want to do kind of going forward. The beauty of selling the business is it buys me a little bit of time, not a lot of time, but a little bit of time. And I'm contracting back to the new owners, so that also gives me some things to do as well. So I've probably got between now and I'd say February, March next year, just to kind of take my time, find my feet, see what's going on. And what I've been doing, as soon as I kind of sold the old business, I decided to set up a FASEA exam preparation course. Because in my previous business, for the last probably 12 or 18 months, because we were training people to either become financial planners or financial planners to upskill. That was basically our core business. And so a lot of those people were saying to me, how do I become FASEA compliant? What's the higher education pathway look like? How do I prepare for the exam? All these things that just, you know what it's like. There's this massive sense of confusion out there around what the best way to go forward is. So I thought, well, if I can start with an exam preparation course to kind of keep my brain ticking over and just kind of keep me in the game, that'll also allow me to kind of buy that time to find out where I end up.
And so that, I guess, the exam preparation course that you're doing at the moment, is that part of the old business that you're running with them, or is it something you're doing on your own?
Good question. Good question. No, it's actually a new separate venture. So the new owners of the business want to take integrity education as it is. They want to kind of take it in a new direction. So they've agreed to kind of let me focus on the FASEA education standards and the FASEA side of things. So it's worked out really well. It's been very amicable, and so it allows me to kind of pursue that FASEA fascination that I have. And so the best place to start and the quickest place to start was the online and workshop FASEA exam prep courses.
Okay. So what got you into business for yourself in the first place? So I guess how long did you have the old business for, and what made you do that?
I suppose if we go way back when, I came out of uni in the mid-90s, and then I started working straight away for Westpac in the financial planning area. I did 2 years in a small boutique financial planning business, and then moved into Westpac. So, and I kind of knew from day one that the corporate lifestyle wasn't the right way for me. But the internet had just kind of started, and it was all pretty new. So the whole thing about high school, uni, corporate career, that's what you did. So I kind of stuck around and did it for a couple of years, and I was heading into my early 20s, and I just thought, look, this isn't me. This isn't me. So I decided I'd go overseas for do a 12-month backpacking thing. That ended up turning into about 2.5 years. So I was overseas for about 2.5 years. And that was great. Like, that really opened my eyes to just the whole world. So, I traveled a lot. I worked in London, and it really kind of gave me some insight into what life can be. So when I came back, I had to come back because I didn't have an EU visa or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I had to come back in the end. And when I came back, I just thought to myself, I tried to slot back into corporate life again. I actually ended up going back to Westpac, and I did about a year or so there, and I just knew that it just wasn't for me. So what I did is I thought, well, the only way I'm going to change my life is by changing my life. So I quit. I didn't have a job to go to, and I just started doing temp work. So I just registered with different temp agencies and just started doing, literally temp work. So I think at one
office-based temp work.
Yeah. At one stage, I was doing redemptions for the back office redemptions for IOOF, like processing paper-based forms that came in. I had to process them through the system, and then off they went. So I did that.
That was my first job. I was doing that kind of thing years back.
There you go. Yeah. So that forced me to actually create my pathway. So while I was doing that, I just started talking to different friends and different people and just saying, hey, I've left Westpac. I'm exploring different opportunities. I didn't want to go back into financial planning. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to build my skill set. And it just so happened at that point in time, a friend of mine had started a training company, and they needed someone to write the materials and present. And my kind of specialty in financial planning was my technical knowledge. So I decided to write the course for them. So it was the first diploma of financial planning that they had. And then I delivered it as well. And I'll tell you what, the first 5 or 6 goes of my delivery was shocking, absolutely shocking.
I'm sure it was only you that thought it was shocking. I'm sure.
No, it's reprehensible. But anyway, I got over it, and you kind of just get better. It's like a floor show. You just get better the more you perform.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed it. I loved it. So I just found this whole new niche that I could use my my skill set as a financial advisor, my technical knowledge, and share it with the world. So I love that aspect to it. And coming back to your question, that's kind of when I first became self-employed, because I was a contractor. I wasn't an employee, so I didn't have the support of all that kind of structure. And to be honest, in the end, it didn't work out, and it didn't work out because the company wasn't financially sound in the end. And I learned a lot of lessons from that. So I got hurt financially. But having said that, I learned a lot and was able to then carry that forward. So from there, I'd met people through that particular business, and then that gave me other opportunities to help other people set up training companies or help deliver existing training that they had, and so forth. So from there, I went to another training company who was setting up. I helped them set up. It's a 6-month contract, so that was fine. And then after that, I kind of, again, I was at a loss. I was in my late 20s by this stage, and I knew I didn't want to work anywhere, or be an employee somewhere. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll jump online. I'll look at all the RTOs, all the training companies in the financial planning space. So who have the diploma registered. Have a look at it, Victorian based, because obviously I'm in Victoria. Have a look at who they are. Have a look at their websites, and have a look at whether I can add value. So what I did is I kind of narrowed the list down, and it wasn't very big. It might have been 10 or 12 RTOs. I had a look through them, and then I just basically marketed myself to them and said, hey, do you need help rewriting your materials? Do you need help teaching? Do you need help assessing, basically? And I got one response. So one response, actually, no lie, I got 2 responses, but the first response, it wasn't a viable option. So I got one response, an additional response, and he goes, yeah, I've got an RTO, but I'm not doing anything with it. It's just dormant. Can you come and help me? So I thought, fantastic, because I didn't have the capital to start my own RTO, but I had the time and I had the knowledge. So 2 out of the 3. So, and this guy, it was a university lecturer, so he didn't have the time and he didn't have the flexibility to be able to get it off the ground. That's why it was sitting there dormant. So it was a perfect match. So again, I jumped in, boots and all, and I took it from a business that was turning over zero, literally, to turning over about 500 grand in the first year. So it was a really, really good story, and we're on track to do really good things. But once again, and I've learned things the hard way. Once again, it was kind of one of those stories where you sit down, you shake hands, you kind of go, yeah, let's do this, let's do that, let's just kind of, start writing material, start structuring it, start getting things happening. Yeah, we'll get to the contracts and we'll get to the shareholder agreements later. Don't worry about it. Let's get it all happening. And then one thing leads to another, and you start to get momentum, and things start to get busy, and you got to trust each other. And it just builds its own momentum. And we got to that 12-month mark, and there was a disagreement around what the original agreement was. And so my view, or what I understood it to be, was if I hit 500,000 or more, I'd get 50% of the business. His understanding was slightly different, and therefore the numbers didn't match. So we got to an impasse. So again, we went our separate ways. What's that?
So you left there.
So I left there. So again, I was contracting that whole time. I was as a contractor to the business. The idea was that I would become a shareholder and then director, and then kind of take it from there. So that's when I kind of met my wife now, around that time, and we just kind of sat down and we just thought, well, you've taken this business from X to Y, and for whatever reasons it didn't work. Then you've taken a second business from A to B, and for whatever reasons it didn't work. Why don't we do it ourselves?
Yeah, you've clearly done it twice before.
Yeah. And I thought, well, yeah, you're right. And probably the last two times I didn't have the belief in myself to actually do it. Whereas now I was a little bit wiser, I was a little bit more mature, I had the support of my wife, and we thought, well, you know what? If I'm ever going to do it, we've got to do it now. So we just started it from our dining room table at home, and we just, launched it. We just started it, and we just, literally rolled it out the door, got a website built. The website was atrocious when I look back now, absolutely atrocious. But it was a gateway to interact with the market and to get stuff happening.
Yep.
And that's what happened. And then slowly, surely, we started getting phone calls, and we started getting students enrolling, and one thing led to another, and it just kind of grew. So that was in 2010. And then over the 9 years since 2010, it just steadily grew and grew and grew, and we had so much fun along the way, and I really loved it. It was great, and so that's how I kind of got into business, and that's how I built the business that I just recently sold. Yeah. And it's never, like, I speak to a lot of people who have businesses or are in business or whatever. It's never a clean linear pathway. There's always back and forth, roundabout. You learn this, you learn that, and then off you go. So that was the lessons all learned through there. And then in terms of exiting the businone.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did that come about? So
yeah, that's a good question.
It's quite interesting how that happens.
Yeah, it's good. It's one of those things as well where looking back, hindsight's a wonderful thing, as everyone says. And I probably should have exited the business in 2015, 2016. Looking back, that's when I should have exited, because that was when the capital value of the business was probably at its peak.
So you would, like, the business was performing at its best then, or it was most valuable then, just because of what they were trading?
It was the most valuable then because of the future potential in the market, and it was heading towards its best performance. Yeah, okay. So it was about the right time to jump. And we seriously considered it. We spoke to business brokers. We got valuations, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I think, we obviously didn't do it. We sold in 2019, but looking back on it, the reason that I didn't do it was, I think I was a bit scared, because I tied so much emotional capital into getting the business off the ground and getting it to the successful part that it was in. I wasn't sure what I'd do afterwards, because in 2015-16 there wasn't any fascia, there wasn't any it was FOFA, and FOFA was coming in and all that kind of stuff. So there wasn't I didn't feel there was a lot of opportunity for me in the market outside of the training business. And also, I think there was probably a little bit of greed of, oh, maybe I can squeeze just a little bit
more in it for me.
A bit more out of the business. Maybe I can just kind of take it to that little next level, and then we'll sell. And the last kind of component to it all, if you like, was in the training space. 2015-16 was the time when the training industry, there was a lot of RTOs milking the federal government in the vet fee help space. So they were basically rorting the system massively, like hundreds of millions of dollars walked out the door. And so the valuation of our business suffered because we didn't have that component to our business. Okay. So everyone wanted to buy a training business with a vet fee help contract. We had a Victorian funding contract, so not as valuable. So it was kind of one of those things where, looking back, we should have, but we didn't. So then that's just the way it is. And then we kind of kept going through. And look, I suppose the reason that we ultimately decided to sell this year is a combination of a few things. One, it's been getting harder and harder in the training space over the last few years, ever since that vet fee help debacle went on, and the industry is being cleaned up, which it should as well. So compliance has kind of doubled in that area. Two is the financial planning space in terms of education has been hit really hard, and especially in the vocational training sector. So we saw that the financial planning division of our business was really starting to suffer off the back of that. The mortgage broking section was fine, and it was continuing to go really, really well. Yeah. But the financial planning space was starting to suffer. And also fascia, in the last 12 to 18 months, I've really got into fascia, and I've really kind of just deep dived into it. And part of the last 12 months in the business was consulting to different AFSLs and individual advisors about fascia. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. So, and I've got young kids as well. So I kind of I sat down with my wife and we just thought, look, the kids are going to starting school. We've still got value in the business. And that's the other thing. And I think this is a really important aspect for people who are tossing up whether to sell a business or not is, we still had value. We still had value in the business. However, in 12 to 18 to 24 months, that value may not be there, or it may not be as high. So I kind of learned my lesson from 2015-16. Yeah. So we just said, look, let's just do it. Let's just put it on the market. Let's see what happens. Because, I'm really into this fascia kind of space. We've now got really good experience across the education space. Worst case scenario, my wife can go get a part-time job in the education space. I can go back into the corporate sector in some way, shape, or form. And also I had this fascia exam prep thing in the back of my mind. So we just thought,
Sorry, the sale, was that through a broker? You mentioned
broker. Yeah. It's really interesting, and that's another kind of aspect to selling a business that I've from my experience that I've kind of thought about, and that is, if you've got a ready-made secondary market, which, for example, RTOs do, so training organisations do, financial planning practices do, mortgage broking practices do. If you've got a ready-made secondary market, it's worthwhile and wise to explore the opportunities, and there's usually brokers who specialise in those areas. So it was actually funny because we went to 3 brokers, and only one of them specialised in training organisations. Yep. So two of the brokers said, "No, can't help you. You're in a declining market. We don't see any value. Sorry." The other guy said, "You're great. You're in a great position. You've got a funding contract. You've got 18 months left on your contract. You've got a really solid business. No, I can sell this." And he did. And that was the difference. So, and it was a really interesting lesson about just kind of exploring opportunities and not necessarily listening to everyone and having a look at someone who's a little bit more specialised.
And so I suppose it's another learning. This constant evolution of a learning over the last 50
Correct.
years you've been doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And then I suppose looking forward, if we're chatting like this in 2-3 years' time, what do you want to have happened personally, professionally, for that to have been a good period of time?
Yeah, that's a really good it's a really good question, and that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm 6 weeks out from the sale, but really only 2 weeks out from the transition. Getting the new owners into the business and helping them bed them down, and things like just simple things like transferring bank accounts and transferring websites, and all the things that you don't think of as a business owner when you exit, all the passwords to all the different sites and things that you use, like half the time it's just saved in Chrome or whatever. So so that took a while to get all the passwords together and everything. So really the only last 2 weeks have I been able to kind of step back and think, well, what am I going to do? And part of that journey is the FASIA exam prep course, in terms of not only the product itself, but the experience that I've had to go through to build that. So, and what I mean by that is, I've picked an idea, I've done my research, I've picked a platform to build the website off, WordPress. I've the hosting provider, after doing a bit of research, which is SiteGround. And then I've done my research around, well, how am I going to actually deliver this product to market? Because it's an online education product, effectively, I came from a traditional training kind of background. So
you're standing up in front of a room full of people in the past.
Yeah, exactly right. And also using platforms that are a lot more robust and designed for accredited training, whereas the online FASIA course is technically non-accredited training. So it doesn't need all the compliance aspects to the back end. But naturally, I just went to the providers that I knew, and they were giving me quotes of like $9,000, $12,000, $15,000 just to get this platform off the ground. And I'm thinking, well, no, it's not that kind of business. So anyway, I ended up doing a bit of research, and I found a online learning management system, effectively, that plugs into the back end of WordPress. And the whole thing cost me like $500. And it's and again, it's like you're saying before, it's those little learnings, it's those little learnings that you can't learn until you do. So part of me setting up the FASIA exam prep course was I wanted to be able to not only write the course, structure the course, and provide quality kind of guidance for the students, but I also wanted to be able to get it out the door and prove that to myself that I could get it out the door. So it was about building the website from scratch. It was about building the learning management system from scratch, effectively, in terms of the content and everything, and then marketing it and getting it out the door and delivering it and continue to deliver it. So that's kind of coming back to your question. That's kind of where my focus and attention's been at the moment. So where do I see myself in 3 years? I actually don't know. And part of what I'm doing at the moment, coming back to the start of the conversation, is meeting with people for coffee, having chats with people like yourself, just connecting with people on LinkedIn, and just reading a lot of different articles from different writers, just trying to get a feel for not financial services related articles, but articles just about exploring opportunities, about habits that you might want to get into. For example, at the moment, I'm exploring that kind of that habit of getting up at 5 a.m. and trying to do this and trying to do that and focusing, and I'm just trying to tweak and try and find my own groove in that respect.
You've got a bit of flexibility now that, as you said right at the start, you've got a bit of time up your sleeve. You can work things and find a new groove. Correct.
And I remember there's a guy called Jason Back who works in the mortgage broking industry, and one of his kind of things is, one of the scarcest resources that's for all of us is time. And I'm actually now in a situation where I have the luxury of a little bit of time. So what that means is that I can spend an hour or two on the web, reading different articles, thinking about this, thinking about that, and it's not a waste of time. It's an investment in where I'm going in the future. And kind of that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I think coming back to your question about 3 years, I'm not sure. I'd like to be in the financial services industry. I'd like to be around the financial planning industry. I still believe it's a fantastic industry. I think it's primed for the change that it has been required for so many years. And I think over the next, I'm not seeing the future like no one else can, but the next 3 to 5 years is going to be massive change, and it's going to be change for the good. but there's going to be a lot of hurt along the way. And I ran a workshop yesterday for the fascia course, and just a whole diverse range of people in the room, and just hearing their stories and what their challenges are and how they're repositioning their business. There's a lot of challenges out there in the marketplace at the individual level, and I just want to be able to help in that capacity.
Yeah, and it's amazing to be positioned, I guess, doing this course, meeting, in front of groups of people on a regular basis. You're in the prime position to really understand the challenges that everyone's facing and how they're dealing with different bits and pieces in their business, which maybe even spark other ideas for you in whatever the next business is that comes down.
Well, that's exactly right. And you're spot on the money, James. Like I kind of have that view of I'm not doing something just for that. I'm doing something for that plus what comes out of it.
Yeah.
In terms of what opportunities kind of come from it, and that's what I've learned from the training business. And there were a couple of times in the 9 years where we were kind of, the business was heading into a certain way where I didn't know if we were going to survive or what the way forward was. And just by doing things and continuing to do things and just getting out there, magically something would happen. Like and it might be a large client would come on board, and that would give us a new direction. Or we'd get I'd meet someone at a conference, and they'd say, "Well, have you ever thought of this?" And that's the other thing that I've really learned probably in the last 10 years is it's those one little nuggets. I don't go into a seminar or a conference anymore thinking I want to be blown away the whole day, otherwise it's a waste of my time. What I want at a minimum is to come away from the day and say, you know what, I got 1 point out of that day, which I'm really going to run with, and I'm going to see where that takes me. And that's
otherwise you end up with too many things, and then you get stuck in that, say, well, do I do this one? Do I do this one? Do I do this one or this one? You end up doing nothing. So if you can come away with the one or two, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Good. All right, Joel. Thanks for spending some time with me this morning.
That's all right. No, thank you for inviting me.
It's great to, I suppose, you're sharing a bit on LinkedIn about what's going on and the progress and stuff. It's good to see. I'll follow along with keen interest.
Thanks, James.
Thanks for coming along for the chat.
No, that's good.
Thanks, Joel.
Enjoy your day.
Yeah, you too. See ya.